Hey everybody, it's Ken from Home Instead. Thanks so much for joining us for another Home Instead chat. It has been a while since we've done one of these, but I'm really excited today to be chatting with my friend Rob Barteletti. You may have seen the conversation last year that I had with Rob's wife, Karen St. Clair. Karen and Rob do a ton of great work with the Parkinson's Foundation. They provide a lot of support for those living with Parkinson's here in our community. And Rob happens to be a prolific musician and songwriter. And given the fact that he's continued to thrive in this area for many years while living with Parkinson's disease himself, I just find him to be such an inspiration. And so later this month, Rob, Karen, and I, along with many other community members and organizations, are going to be leading in the cause of raising awareness and funds at the Parkinson's Foundation's Moving Day event, which is Saturday, May 21st at the Montecito, Santa Fe. So please mark your calendars to join us for that. Today, I thought it would be fun to visit with Rob about his music, his journey living with Parkinson's, and really whatever else happens to come up. So please welcome Rob. Thanks for hanging out with me, Rob.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So the first question I wanted to toss your way was just kind of, going back to when did music become the thing for you? Like, does that make you think about a certain time in your life or maybe a certain event or a person that influenced you? When did it become your thing?
That's a great question. I was first introduced to playing music when I was 6 years old. My parents, being good Italians, wanted me to play the accordion, and so they arranged for lessons for me once a week, and I played the accordion until I was 11 years old. And then as I got to be a preteen, I was more interested in the guitar than as most people back in those days. It was just before. It was pre-Beatles and pre-Rolling Stones, and I abandoned the accordion pretty much for forever after that. I still picked it up every now and then, but the guitar held my fascination. So when I was 15 years old, 14 or 15 years old, I started playing the guitar. And I wrote my first song when I was 16. We formed a band, my high school buddies and I. We called ourselves the Bitter Souls. I mean, 16 years old, what do you know about being bitter? But,
That's great. That's so great. That reminds me a lot of when I started playing the guitar myself.
Yeah. Our first song was my first original song was a song called "You Won't Be the Last." So that it was appropriate for Bitter Souls to have a song that title.
So being that it was pre-Stones, pre-Beatles that you were getting into guitar, who was your influence for getting into the guitar?
Well, it was really listening to Ricky Nelson. Who else? I'm trying to think now.
Regardless, you just felt like it was cooler than the accordion. You definitely felt like you were going to impress more of your classmates with the guitar than the accordion.
Especially the girls. Yeah, and the Everly Brothers, and I liked their harmonies. I was in Glee Club in high school. That was right around the time the Beatles started about 1965, 66, and I was a Dave Clark Five fan. At the time, you were either in the Beatles camp or in the Dave Clark Five's camp, and I thought the Beatles were a flash in the pan, and Dave Clark Five would live on into infinity. But they were a good band, but I missed it on the Beatles. I came around to them a little later. But my favorite band of all time was the Byrds.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I gotta admit, like I definitely know more Beatles tunes than Dave Clark Five. I don't really know if I could name any of their tunes myself. So yeah, the Beatles
Beatles,
did end up winning that, right?
yeah.
So, um, how long have you been living with Parkinson's disease?
For at least 21 years. I was diagnosed 21 years ago, and next month in Italy. Um, my cousin's a musician, and I was showing him that I was having trouble with my hands, my left
Mm.
hand, and his wife is a physician, and she said, let me see that. And so I showed her, and she said, I want you to see a friend of mine, and she sent me to a neurologist outside of Milan, and I was
Mm.
diagnosed in 10 minutes. But I'd
Wow.
already gone to my doctor in the States, in Portland, Oregon, where I was living, and he said, no, you don't have Parkinson's. You're too young. I said, what about Michael J. Fox? And I was 53 at the time. So when I
Mm.
went to Italy, it was interesting that I got a diagnosis in a foreign country.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So I mentioned up top how I really find it just truly inspiring how you have persevered in the face of what I can only imagine would be many different struggles living with Parkinson's. And I'd like it if you could talk a little bit about the challenges that you've been faced with, and how you've approached moving through or moving with them, adapting, specifically with like music and songwriting.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, Songwriting is something that I started, as I said, when I was 16 years old. And all through college, high school and college, I wrote music, and I performed in college in local coffee houses. And so the singer-songwriter phase was just starting to become Jackson Brown and people like him, Joni Mitchell, um, Bob Dylan, of course, and
Yep.
uh, and so I was in that wave, but way, 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 way in the back of the wave, not very well known, except among my friends. But then when I always wanted to be a shredder. I always wanted to play real
Nice.
hot licks on the guitar, and I um, even in my 20s, my left hand wasn't working as well as my right hand. I just figured I'm right-handed, so that's why my left hand isn't working as well. But I practiced like crazy, and I could never ever play those licks the way I wanted to. And was when I went to a neurologist after I got back from Italy when I was 53, I told him my history, and the neurologist said that that's probably an early stage sign that you very very early stage that you had pre Parkinson's.
Hmm.
And I said, well, great, because I thought I was a terrible guitar player. I can blame it on Parkinson's now.
Well, I've heard a lot of your music, and you're definitely not a terrible guitar player,
Well,
terrible musician in any way. Like,
I'd give
uh,
anything to be that terrible again.
so you've just released a new album of
Yeah,
instrumentals. It's called New Worlds, and by the way, that's available everywhere: Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, etc. For anybody who's interested in checking it out. But New Worlds, what can you tell me about the album, how it came together, and what it was like to create it and put it out into the world?
well, I lost my ability to play the guitar as well as I would have liked to, and so and keyboards were almost as difficult. So I had to find another outlet, and I have a Mac, and Mac has GarageBand on it, and I started playing around with GarageBand, and it's um, a really neat program. I can use loops, which are repetitions of a measure or two of notes,
Yeah.
or I can use samples, which are samples of various instruments, and I use a MIDI keyboard, don't know if I can show it to you here. There's my MIDI
Awesome.
keyboard, and I need to get one with more keys. This is only has 25 keys, but I play trumpet, horns, strings, cello, violin, um, sound effects, a didgeridoo even. Um, using the MIDI keyboard, it plugs into my computer and it links up with GarageBand, and I can play, and so I'm able to do that.
What a gift. I mean, that's just amazing use of the technology that I don't think was probably even intended with the creation of it. But it's such a really cool. When I think of loops and samples and things like that, and the tools that are in those programs, a lot of the times that stuff is it's heavily used in the creation of beats and hip hop and things like that.
Right.
But the genres that you tend to use those tools for, I don't know if that's quite as common. Like
I don't
I mean, at least in what I've heard.
I don't think so. When I go to YouTube to check out GarageBand tutorials, most of the music is hip hop or electronica,
Yeah,
and I haven't heard a lot of people doing what I'm doing with it, which makes it a little bit more unique for me.
yeah.
I'm still stuck in the '60s and '70s, so my musical tastes are what I produce with my own music.
Well, I feel like listening to some of the music that you created and put out there, I don't really feel. I feel like a good amount of it doesn't really, it isn't pigeonholed by a certain era. It kind of transcends, just good. It's just good music, and it's. I mean, you go into like lots of different types of styles that I don't really know if they're more pinned to an era as like a style of music, whether it be like well, I'm blanking, but like rock and roll or
Right,
flamenco or
right.
the different.
I cross
I thought it
over.
would be. So go ahead. Sorry.
I cross over into a lot of different genres. I guess what I meant by the '60s and '70s was that when music was it was melodic. I don't find a lot of the more contemporary music to be as melodic, as melody and lyric oriented as music from the '50s, '60s, and '70s.
Yeah.
So, but I do cross over. I even have some accordion in some of my songs, and I cross over to between some almost classical music to Spanish, Latin American style music
Yeah.
to bluegrass, rock and roll, um, progressive rock.
Well, speaking of, I thought it would be kind of fun to play a few clips of different songs that you've released over the years. And um, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bounce over to Spotify and click play on a few different songs. And
Okay.
after I play a bit of the song, I'd love it if you would just kind of share a little bit about what it reminds you of. Maybe if you have a story about the song, or I mean, with as many songs as you've created, I think you might even go, "Wait, what one was that?" So like we could even just listen to it together and enjoy it. But yeah, if you have any tidbits that you could share about their genesis, so I'm gonna
Before we
bounce
do
over
that, I
there
just
now.
wanted to say this is I'm wearing an authentic Shakers Ball shirt. Shakers Ball is something I started in Portland, Oregon in 2005 and did it for 7 years in a row. I brought my musician friends together to do a concert for Parkinson's Resources of Oregon, and
That's
I
so
later went
cool.
on to do an album called Shakers Sessions, and that became an album that is now called Tremors. But it had 12 different singers who were singing my songs, and we raised money for the Brian Grant Foundation. Brian Grant is a former Portland Trailblazer basketball player who was diagnosed with Parkinson's at a young age, and he has a foundation now. and we raised $54,000 for his foundation, selling 9,000 CDs, which was really an amazing um, feat. That
That's amazing,
and
Rob.
it took the
That's so
whole team
cool that
of
you're
us
wearing
to
that
do it.
shirt. I love that. And then the
Yeah,
story behind it, like that's definitely just something that's really really close to my heart. I mean, as you know, I make music too, and as I've gotten a little older, and like the I realized how maybe unimportant it is to hold on to that early dream of being the rock star or something.
yeah,
Just creating the art itself, and then maybe being able to do something that lends to a good cause, that helps people with the art. Like that's where the sauce is at for me these
yeah.
days, and I love that story.
Most of the money that I've made from my music, which is not very much at all, but I've contributed most of it to Parkinson's foundations and resources because and I'm not making music to make money. I'm making music to make music.
Yep. All right, so I'm gonna the first one I'm gonna click play on. I'll tell you which one this is. This is the first track on your newest release on New Worlds. This song's called Valencia. And actually, you know what? Let me make sure that I'm sharing the sound with you so that you can hear it well on your end.
Okay.
Just a second here. All right, so you should be able to hear this now when I click play on it.
Yeah, I can hear.
And when you sent me this, when you sent me an email announcing this release, and I clicked play on this song, I was just like, it transports. New World is a great name for it because it kind of just it takes you to a different place. When you hear great instrumental music like this. So what does this one make you think of?
Valencia. Karen and I went to Spain. We went on a cruise in the Mediterranean. We went to Spain. Valencia was one of our offboarding sites, and I had my walker with me. This was in 2019, just before the pandemic, and we walked through old town Valencia, and it's just a beautiful city. And I had Valencia orange juice from real Valencia oranges, and we just had a wonderful time walking around. Um, must have gone through 3 to 5 miles, me with my walker on these cobblestones, and so my friend Paul Lasinski is a co performer on this album. He plays lead guitar on several of the songs, and he made a video of this song. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's of a young woman running in slow motion through the cobblestone streets of Valencia.
Oh wow!
He found it online, and it was shareware, so he was able to make a video of it. So
I'll have to see if I can put a clip of that video in.
If you go to YouTube and just put Barteletti Lasinski in there, or Barteletti Valencia, it'll take you to it.
That is so cool. All right, so I'm gonna go way back for this next one.
All right.
And I'm not gonna tell you the name of it before I click it.
Sombrero.
So I still remember the first time I had a conversation with Karen about music. She brought up, I don't know if I had even met you yet, and she brought up the fact that you played music and that you were still creating, that you were living with Parkinson's, and she mentioned this album, and I went back and looked it up, and I thought it was great.
Yeah, that was my first
just a rodeo used to be.
So that's you singing, right?
That's me singing.
It sounds great. I love it. I love it. I think it sounds great. It definitely has like for me, I mean, I I probably am much less familiar with a lot of your earlier influences because I grew up in a different time listening to lots of different stuff. But like that immediately like makes me feel like Bob Dylan vibes.
Yeah, it actually. I was listening to Sleep at the Wheel, a Texas swing band,
Mm.
and I got the inspiration to write this song. It's a style that's really different from me, but I wrote it years ago, years and years ago.
Yeah,
It was
that
just
song
about
is called
aging.
Old Sombrero, right? And it's
Yeah, and I'm
from
the
an
old
album.
sombrero.
When did you put that one out?
2005. It's almost 20 years ago. And
That's crazy.
it seems like yesterday that I wrote those songs on that album. That was my first CD, so we used all the bells and whistles in the studio as typical rookie um, decision to use background singers, and it turned out to be a pretty tech, textured album.
Hmm.
Um, but Old Sombrero was my image for somebody who was getting older, and the young people were passing him by, dancing around me like an old sombrero.
Wow, that's great imagery. I love that. Let's do a couple more. So this one is now it's really really cool that you gave me the story about that shirt because one of the songs that I had selected ended up being from that Shakers Session Tremors album.
Yeah, being Jesus.
I love that guitar tone and the effect that's on there. Did you sing on some of these ones too?
I sang on the last one on the CD.
I know she
Man, her lover, her
knows
friend.
the way that I feel.
Who's
This
that
is Rob
singing?
Don't
Stoops.
hide well the things I can see.
Rob Stoops
really cool.
Happy or sad,
was the co-producer of
always
the album with me.
there on my face.
He's a good
That was
friend.
Rob Stroop, and
Yeah,
he's the co-producer.
yeah. He's one of my good friends.
So did you? So what can you tell me about that song?
That song was about my tendency to be a white knight savior. I've often gone through various relationships in my life where I've tried to fix things that were wrong with somebody. And
Mm.
so this is a song about being, there I go being Jesus again. Uh, trying
That
to,
is a fantastic line. Like I love that. That's so cool.
thanks. Yeah, Rob, that was the first song that I gave to Rob to listen to. And Rob Stroop, and he said, "Do you have more like this?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got a whole bunch." So we picked 12 of them, and we made the album, each with a different singer. Um, Rob Stoops leads off the CD with Being Jesus Again, and there's a guy named Fernando who is a Bob Dylan sound alike. He does a song called Queen of Sheba.
Hmm.
Storm Large, who is known in Santa Fe, she sings with a band called Pink Martini, and she also has solo performance. She just performed at the Lenzik in February on Valentine's Day. She sings a song called Voices on the CD. They're all Northwest singers and singers. Pete Droge is another one who is well known in singer-songwriter circles.
That is so cool. Yeah, I love knowing the story behind that album now. I'm going to have to go and dig a little deeper and listen to some more of those tunes. So we'll do one more of these. This is a lot of fun. So this one, you mentioned that you've been really getting into just the style of music that natives create, and you've been kind of implementing that into some newer things. And I think that the only one that's so far released is the song Lamentation, right?
That's right. I'm working
So I'll
on.
play a little bit of that one.
Okay, I'm working on an EP.
That sounds so cool. Is that like a slide guitar
Slide
loop or
guitar,
something?
slide guitar that I'm using the MIDI on. I play all the instruments on this one.
That is so cool. And you're mixing these yourself, right?
Yeah, fix them all myself.
Did you sing that little bit there?
No, I found that was a loop that I chopped up.
Okay. I like that. I could imagine it being you. It was very cool. I liked
Yeah,
it.
it really. I was looking for a voice that sounded like a Native American chant, and I found that,
Hmm.
and I knew it was perfect for the song.
Listen to a little bit more of it. Just listening to it, this morning with the headphones on, I can really appreciate like all the layers that you built into that, and yeah, it's cool to hear your ear for mixing as well, like because how you panned everything and how you built the space within that track, I feel like is really impressive. I think it sounds awesome.
Yeah, I do a lot of layering, and then I go back and subtract after a while. I think space is as important as what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Filler, right?
Complexity.
Like I mean, just like having empty space is important too.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a painting. You don't want it so cluttered that you don't have a focal point. And so I try to make sure that I've got a motif that runs through, a theme that runs through my songs, and and I have to make space for that. But
Mm.
it's easier to subtract than to add. I find for me, and as a composer, I'd rather layer it with more than I need, and then I take out what I don't need, and that's when sometimes the discovery of the song actually occurs when I'm editing it rather than when
Mm.
I'm putting it all together.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Like I feel like that's a bit that I could try and apply myself. Um, yeah, because I can always find something else to add.
Yeah,
Like,
Karen is really good at helping me with this. She's got a great ear, and she'll say, "Yeah, a little too much drum there, a little bit too much guitar. It's
she's
too
like your
different."
co-producer.
Yeah, she's a good critic. She doesn't pull any punches either. She doesn't let me get away with things that I can't play the Parkinson sympathy card with her when I'm doing my music. She said, this has got to be your best effort. So
It's really good stuff, Rob. And
thank you.
thank you so much for joining me today and doing this. We would definitely like to invite everyone once again to join us for the upcoming Parkinson's Moving Day
May 21st.
event. That's Saturday, May 21st. And a link with all the details about the event is going to be in the description on this video. And along with links to Rob's music on several different music streaming services. So you can check that out as well. But thanks so much for joining me, Rob. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun chatting with you today.
Thanks for having me, Ken. Take care.